Growing up in Lansing, Illinois, I learned the harsh realities of survival. My father's misuse shaped my resilience, and my mother's silence taught me self-reliance. By my teenage years, I had become adept at navigating the rough streets of Chicago's South Side, where ambition and guile often determined who succeeded and who failed. While others clung to hope in traditional avenues, I found opportunities in unconventional ventures, some less than legal. This gritty upbringing forged the mindset I'd need for the battles ahead. Years later, I poured my tenacity into legitimate enterprises, real estate vending services, and a coin exchange business spanning the region. Though my operations flourished, my personal life faltered. Marrying Lillian seemed like a dream initially, but as her ambitions clashed with my simpler desires, our bond unraveled. Her escalating betrayals and my refusal to accept defeat sowed the seeds for a storm that neither of us could escape. The court ruled against me in almost every way possible. I was ordered to provide $2,000 a month in alimony, $1,000 in child support, and cover the mortgage and health insurance until my daughter, Regina, reached adulthood, or longer if she pursued higher education. The total burden exceeded $6,500 monthly. My ex-wife, Lily, whose affairs with her firm's lawyers were no secret, had managed to manipulate the system to bleed me dry. I'm Kurt D'Angelo. My ex-wife is Lillian, and our daughter, Regina, is my pride and joy. Daddy's little girl, without a doubt. I took her to fun places when I could. She even told the judge she wanted to live with me, but he ignored her. The whole process was a farce. Lily had a job and didn't need my financial support on top of the mortgage and other payments. I felt cheated, and I suspect the judge was biased. I didn't take it lying down. I started planning my revenge. I can be vindictive when wronged, a trait honed growing up in Lansing, Illinois on Chicago's South Side. People there know how to settle scores. Some call me an entrepreneur. I just see opportunities and seize them. Admittedly, not all my early ventures were legal. Now I own rental properties, vending machines, and a coin-changing business similar to Coinstar, which operates across Chicagoland and northern Indiana. That business gave me an idea for how to pay Lily, entirely in coins. Let her haul them to the bank. Lily worked part-time after Regina started school, then became a paralegal. She climbed the ranks quickly, helped by her looks, I suspect. At the time, I supported her career, clueless about the reality. As she advanced, her attitude changed. She wanted a fancier lifestyle, pressuring me to move to an upscale neighborhood. Reluctantly, I agreed, though I kept our Oak Forest house as a rental property. We bought a $900,000 house in Wilmette, which she filled with expensive furniture. I never felt at home there. It marked the beginning of our downfall. I preferred a modest life, while she wanted to flaunt her success. After our divorce, I decided to follow the court's orders exactly, but on my terms. Regina's child support went into an account just for her. She had excellent health insurance, but Lily only got catastrophic coverage with a high deductible. When the first spousal support payment was due, I arranged for an armored truck to deliver it, all in coins. When Lily answered the door with one of her lawyer friends, the drivers unloaded bag after bag of change onto her marble floor. Neighbors gathered, curious about the commotion. I stood across the street filming as Lily screamed at me. I waved and shouted, "Enjoy your money, strumpet," before driving off. On Tuesday, a man approached me and asked, "Are you Kurt D'Angelo?" I ignored him. He repeated the question louder, then snapped a picture of me holding a subpoena. When I didn't take it, he threw it on the ground, said, "You've been served," and left. After making sure he was gone, I picked it up. I had court the following Wednesday, a week to prepare. I spent the week making calls, setting appointments, and planning. I also took my daughter, Regina, to lunch. She was furious with her mother, calling her a terrible person. Regina told me she wanted to live with me again, but her mother wouldn't agree. I told her I'd fight in court, even if it landed me in jail. She begged me not to get violent. I reassured her, explaining I'd set up a trust for her, with her uncle as trustee, ensuring her needs were met, none of it going to her mother. "She doesn't deserve anything," Regina said, showing her growing maturity. On court day, Regina, my lawyer, and I waited for our case to be called. Lily arrived with her lawyer, sneering at me. "You better stick to the rules." I simply replied, "Wait and see." When the judge called my name, Regina stood first, declaring she wanted to live with me, not her mother. The judge reprimanded her for her tone and dismissed her claim, citing a psychiatrist's report alleging inappropriate behavior on my part. I was stunned. Lily had weaponized an old report from Regina's therapy sessions to frame me as a carnivore. My lawyer objected, stating no charges were ever filed. The judge shut him down, refusing to reconsider. Lily's attorney then requested I be held in contempt, claiming child support wasn't paid. My lawyer countered, explaining the money had gone directly to Regina for her needs, verified by canceled checks. Regina nodded, backing up the claim. Frustrated, Lily's lawyer shifted tactics, complaining about spousal payments in coins, calling it an intolerable hardship. The judge agreed, saying payments should be made by check. My lawyer quickly challenged this, asking if the Chicago Police Department, part of the legal system, could insist on cash or card for fines. The judge hesitated. If they can refuse checks, why can't my client pay in legal tender? My lawyer pressed. Embarrassed and defensive, the judge retorted, "This is my court and what I say goes." His bias was clear, but I could see Lily and her lawyer scrambling. This wasn't over. My vindictive side was just getting started. I'd had enough. Rising from my seat, I glared at the judge. "You're the law? Or just here to please my wife's law firm? Was she a strumpet for you too?" The judge's face turned red as he exploded. "Mr. D'Angelo, you're in contempt of court. 6 months in Cook County Jail unless you apologize and comply with my conditions." I shot back without hesitation. "Who are you, king of this kangaroo court?" The judge, visibly shocked, barked an order to the bailiff. "Take him into custody." As the bailiff led me away, I turned to Lily, my estranged wife, and sneered, "Good luck getting your money, witch." Her expression was a mix of fury and confusion. She had no idea how much her life was about to change. Once at the jail, I was processed, strip-searched, fingerprinted, and escorted to a cell. 2 guards tried to intimidate me, asking why I disrespected the judge, but I wasn't fazed. At 6'4" and 255 pounds, years of hard labor had kept me strong, and my time in juvie had long ago stripped me of fear. The next day, in the yard, I kept to myself, watching everything from the shadows. During the evening meal, as I stood eating against the wall, a familiar voice called out, "Tex!" I turned, spotting Ringer, an old friend from my delinquent youth. We embraced, drawing curious glances from the other inmates. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice low but amused. "Told a judge he's an a-hole," I said flatly. Ringer chuckled. "How long they give you?" 6 months, unless I apologize, which isn't happening. We found a quiet spot to catch up. Ringer knew me too well, especially my penchant for revenge. I told him about Lily, her lawyer friends, and the judge who thought he could crush me. "They'll regret crossing me," I vowed. Ringer gave a knowing nod. "You always had a plan, Tex. Need help?" "Maybe," I replied. "But for now, just having you here is enough." Ringer grinned. "Well, you know I've got your back." For the first time since this mess began, I felt a sliver of control return. That night in my bunk, I reflected. My rough childhood shaped me. My dad was an abusive drunk, and my mom never stood up for me. I escaped to the streets, finding others like me. We weren't a gang, just kids trying to survive. We committed petty crimes and stole cars, which eventually got me locked up. Oddly, that experience turned my life around. It forced me to rethink my choices and build a plan for the future. Now, I had to plan again, but this time, for payback. By age 20, I had saved enough to buy a foreclosed house in my neighborhood, the first of many I renovated and rented out. At 22, I was at a club trying my luck when I met Lily. I barely remember the place. It's since been replaced by condos. That night, I thought I struck gold. Lily had just moved to Chicago from Seymour, Indiana, a small town famous for being John Mellencamp's hometown. Her small-town charm and fresh outlook on life intrigued me. We hit it off, opposites attracting. A year later, we married. The following year, Regina was born, named after Lily's mother. I bought a house in Oak Forest intending to rent it out, but Lily loved it and insisted we make it our home. Over the next decade, we renovated it together, raised our daughter, and hosted neighborhood barbecues. It felt like the perfect life, the American dream. Things changed when Lily got a job at a law firm. She outgrew our simple life, craving expensive clothes, jewelry, and fancy dinners with her colleagues instead of neighborhood get-togethers. She also began looking down on the south side of Chicago, where we lived. Her growing arrogance led to frequent arguments. Eventually, she pressured me to move to the north side. 3 years ago, we made the move, partly for the better schools. But Regina hated it. Her new classmates' snobbery made her miserable. She wanted to go back, and so did I, but Lily refused to listen. She was exactly where she wanted to be. Our marriage began unraveling one evening when she called, claiming she was attending a dance with colleagues. Suspicious, I tracked her phone and went to check. Hidden in the shadows, I watched her dancing provocatively with a group of men. Around 9:15, I overheard two guys in the restroom boasting about their encounters with Lily, including quick trysts in cars and plans for proper fun later that night. When I returned, I saw her making out on the dance floor with one of the men. At 9:30, she texted me, claiming she was too drunk to take the L and would stay with Paula, a colleague. Then she sent another message saying, "I'm sorry." She would be sorry. I followed her as she left the club, hand in hand with a younger lawyer. They didn't notice me as they climbed into his Lexus, kissing and groping. My anger subsided as I started planning my next move. I followed them to his building, noting every detail. It was time for payback. When I arrived, I found Regina waiting anxiously. I looked her in the eyes and said firmly, "We're leaving for good. Pack everything you want to take with you." She hesitated for a moment, then asked quietly, "What about Mom?" "There are other guys taking care of her now," I replied, my voice cold but resolute. Regina's expression shifted. She understood immediately. Without another word, we worked quickly. In 3 hours, the truck was loaded and we left, heading to my vacant house in Oak Forest. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Lily. "Kurt, what's going on? Where are you?" she demanded. "Home," I said bluntly. "Why?" she pressed, though her tone betrayed that she already knew the answer. "I don't know you anymore, Lily, and I don't want to," I replied, my voice flat with finality. Her voice trembled slightly. "Where's Regina?" "She's with me," I said firmly. "She doesn't want to live with you anymore." Lily tried to argue, saying I couldn't just walk away. "No, Lily, but your fun with other men is reason enough to leave. Expect divorce papers next week." Her response was venomous. "You Southsider piece of crap, my firm will destroy you." "Maybe," I said, "but you haven't seen my full wrath yet." Over 6 months, Lily never tried to reconcile. She openly bragged about dating lawyers, and Regina told me Lily was out late almost every night, bad-mouthing me and pushing Regina to find a rich husband someday. Regina defended me, saying she wanted to return to Oak Forest. Now, lying in jail, I imagined Lily thought she'd won. But I knew she'd struggle to manage the mortgage, health insurance, and spousal support without me. Jail wasn't breaking me. It was giving me time to plan. On Thursday, 2 guards summoned me to a video room. I protested, asking for my lawyer, but they shoved me inside, saying, "You're not meeting the judge. You're being sentenced." When I resisted, they locked the door, leaving me to yell in frustration. Minutes later, they let 6 inmates in. I knew their intent and prepared to fight. "You'll regret this," I warned. One lunged and I broke his nose. Then the rest attacked. I fought hard, punching, kicking, and pinning some against the wall, but a larger man got me in a chokehold. I swung until I blacked out. I woke in the infirmary, battered and in pain, knowing what had happened. The nurse approached, her face calm but firm. "I'm here to help you," she said. "You can accept it or suffer." Her honesty softened me. I nodded and managed, "Thank you." She brought me breakfast and freed one hand so I could eat. "Can I ask a favor?" I said cautiously. "That depends," she replied. "My friend Randall Turner, can I see him?" "We'll see," she said, leaving it vague. Later, Ringer visited. Seeing my condition, he muttered, "Oh, crap." I described the 6 inmates and 2 guards responsible. "I need their full names, not nicknames," I said. Ringer hesitated. "What are you planning?" "An eye for an eye," I said, but with a twist. Ringer saw the look in my eyes and understood what it meant. This wouldn't end well for certain people. "I'll get the info you need," he said. "What else?" "That's it. I'll handle the rest." The next day, Ringer handed me the list he'd promised. "What are you going to do with it?" he asked, curiosity and concern in his voice. "The less you know, the better," I replied firmly, pocketing the paper. Sunday brought an unexpected visit, Lily and Regina. Lily wasted no time breaking the tension. "So, how's life with your new cellmates?" she sneered, her tone dripping with mockery. I scowled. "What do you want?" "Regina insisted on coming," she said with a shrug before smirking. "Ready to apologize yet?" "Not a chance," I snapped. "And stop spreading lies about me and Regina. You know they're not true." Her eyes gleamed with malice. "How do I know that? She's unusually attached to you." I stared at her in disgust. "You're disgusting. Go back to your boyfriends and leave me alone." With a smug smile, Lily turned and left. But I caught the look on Regina's face, anger and heartbreak simmering just below the surface. Once Lily was gone, Regina rushed into the room and burst into tears when she saw me. "Don't cry, sweetheart. It looks worse than it is," I said gently, trying to reassure her. "I hate Mom for this," she sobbed. "For lying, for making me live with her. She's horrible." "I know," I said softly, pulling her into a hug. Wiping her eyes, she straightened up. "Don't call me Regina anymore. I'm Gina now. I don't want anything to do with her or her family." I looked at her, proud of her defiance. "Gina, you're just like me," I said with a small smile. "We'll show them." We sat and talked for a while, the weight of the visit slowly lifting. Then I leaned closer and asked, "Can you do something for me?" She nodded without hesitation. "Anything, Dad." I handed her the list Ringer gave me. She tucked it into her bra. "Give this to Uncle Ken and tell him to visit me." Ken, my younger brother, had always been the brains of the family. While I protected him from our abusive father growing up, he buried himself in computers and became an expert. That divide made us a formidable team in our own way. After sharing some final words, Gina hugged me tightly before walking out, deliberately ignoring Lily. As she left, Lily called after her, muttering, "Stubborn girl," before following her out the door. On Tuesday, Ken came to visit. His eyes widened in shock at my bruises and battered state. "Looks better than Friday," I joked, flashing a crooked grin. He smiled faintly, then glanced around to make sure no one was listening. Switching to the secret language we'd used as kids, he said, "Gina gave me a list. What do you need?" I leaned forward and said evenly, "Addresses of their wives or girlfriends." Ken let out a low whistle. "Oh, crap. Just get the info and pass it to Gummy. Tell him to come see me, but without the list." Gummy was an old friend from the neighborhood, someone I trusted with certain tasks. Ken nodded, though his expression was uneasy. "I'll take care of it. Anything else?" "Just visit when you can," I said. "I could use a friendly face." Ken frowned. "Won't you be out soon?" "Not unless I apologize," I replied firmly. "And you know I won't." "You've always been stubborn," he said. "Kept you safe from Dad, didn't it?" I replied. He smiled, knowing I was right. "I'll check in soon," he promised. Back in my cell, Ringer warned me. Things are about to get rough, but they don't know why yet. The guards and the 6 inmates who attacked me made their threat clear with their glares, but they had no idea they'd soon pay the price. Gummy visited and asked, "Ken gave me this. What's the plan?" "Did Ken tell you what they did to me?" I asked. He nodded. "Return the favor, hit their loved ones. No DNA evidence. Use Steely Dan or his flexible cousins," I said. He understood. "Do it all at the same time and make sure they hear, 'Don't mess with Texas.'" "I'll get my guys," he said, leaving with determination. A week later, I noticed 2 guards were missing and one of the 6 inmates seemed distraught. I suspected the plan had been executed. Soon, prisoners began calling me Tex, and the 6's angry stares confirmed it. When one of them confronted me, Ringer's group surrounded us for protection. "You're a piece of crap," the inmate spat. "My girlfriend dumped me. She said she didn't want to risk getting hurt and mentioned, 'Don't mess with Texas.'" Smirking, I replied, "Sounds like solid advice. Now your women know what it feels like. You hurt me. I hurt those you care about. Next time, it'll be your mothers." His face fell and he retreated to his group. Later, 2 guards confronted me, threatening to make my life miserable. "Then I guess your wives better get used to new attention," I said coldly. One guard snapped and started knocking me in front of the others. I didn't fight back. After a few minutes, another guard pulled him away, but not before prisoners and cameras witnessed it all. I was taken to the infirmary where Beth, the nurse, greeted me. "So, trouble again?" she asked. "I didn't fight, he just started striking me," I explained. "There'll be an investigation this time. He'll likely lose his job," she said while bandaging me. "One less corrupt guard," I muttered. "Guards are here to protect you, whether you believe it or not," she countered. "Well, they failed last time. He let it happen," I replied. She kept me overnight for observation. Meanwhile, the suspended guard's partner glared at me but said nothing. I could tell he'd gotten the message. Don't mess with Texas. Weeks passed and Gina hadn't visited. Ken finally came with news. Lily was refusing to bring her. That enraged me even more. My ex-wife was now keeping my daughter from me, and I was determined to fight back harder. At the end of the month, Lily came to visit, dragging Gina along. Gina had refused to get out of the car until Lily relented. When Lily finally entered the room, she was already fuming. "Your daughter is impossible. She barely speaks to me and is just as stubborn as you," she snapped. "You said that last time," I replied evenly. "Why not ask the judge to give her to me? I'd gladly take her." "You're not getting her," Lily shot back. "She needs a good education to succeed." Oak Forest is a good school, and she loved it there, I countered. Wilmette's better. She's meeting people who can help her future, Lily insisted. Our daughter will create her own future without riding anyone's coattails, I said firmly. Lily's tone turned sharper. You're so stubborn you can't see the benefits, I sighed, tired of the same argument. Lily, we've had this conversation too many times. You're not changing my mind, and I'm not changing yours, so why are you here? I know it's not to bring Gina to me. Her name is Regina, not Gina, Lily corrected coldly. That's not what she wants to be called, I replied. Don't you want her to think for herself? You mean be stubborn, Lily retorted. No, I said pointedly. Independent. Strong enough to make her own decisions, not just follow someone with money or power. Lily smirked, recognizing the jab. Then, cutting to the point, she said, I need spousal support. I have bills to pay. You'll have to figure that out yourself. No paycheck for me means no payments, I said calmly. What? I can't cover the bills with my income, she exclaimed. Well, maybe you should have thought of that before dragging me to court, I replied. You made things worse paying me in coins, she snapped. And now you're getting nothing because I'm in jail, I said matter-of-factly. You have to pay, she yelled. No, I don't. What can they do? Jail me again? I'm already here. What about the bills? She whined. Ask one of your lawyer friends to cover them. You deserve it, I said icily. That sent her storming out. A moment later, Gina walked in, and I felt a wave of relief. You really pissed her off, Gina said with a grin. She expects me to pay support from jail. Good luck with that, I replied. How are you doing, Dad? She asked. I'm fine. How about you? Still not talking to your mom? Only when I have to, Gina admitted. When are you getting out? I'm not apologizing to that judge unless he gives you back to me. That's not happening, so I'll be here for 6 months. Gina nodded sadly. Next month's my birthday. I'd love to celebrate with you, but don't go against your principles. We'll celebrate when you're out. Her words tore at me, but then she added something that caught me off guard. If a man has no principles, he has nothing. As Lincoln said, important principles can and should be unbending. Where did you hear that? I asked. My school counselor, Dr. Hodges. He's been great. Some teachers noticed my grades slipping and suggested I talk to him. It's helped with Mom, too, even if I still don't talk to her much. Wilmette's wealth showed in things like this. In a district like hers, even the school counselors had doctorates in psychology. Well, I said, your mom seems upset with you, too. Yeah, she's getting on my nerves. I just ignore her. I think it makes things worse, but I don't care. In a couple of months, she'll have to start finding a new place to live, I said. The bank won't let the jumbo loan sit unpaid for long. Her mansion will probably be foreclosed on within 3 months. But Dad, if the house is foreclosed on, won't that hurt your reputation? Gina asked, her brow furrowing. Honey, when you pay for most things in cash, you don't worry about credit. That dumb mansion was the only thing I ever took a loan for. Really? Wow, Dad. Even with all your leases and businesses, you've never taken out a loan? I use money from one to buy the next, I explained. Gina smiled warmly. Daddy, I've always respected you, but now I respect you even more. Thank you, dear, I said, smiling back. You always know how to cheer me up. Spending time with my daughter was wonderful. I really wanted to see her more often. Missing her birthday would be tough for both of us, but I knew she'd be okay. She's a strong kid. The next week, I learned the security guard who touched me had been fired. It was hard to argue with video evidence showing I didn't even defend myself. A few days later, the other guard quit. I'm not sure if he was transferred or not, but at least he was gone. Several inmates thanked me for getting rid of the bad guard. I think I earned some respect. More people started calling me Tex, and I didn't have much trouble after that. The Sixes were still angry with me. I heard one of their wives filed for divorce, and 3 others were dumped by their girlfriends. Maybe even stupid people can learn. With the threat of more retaliation and my increased standing among the inmates, they realized it was better to leave me alone. A couple of weeks later, I got a subpoena to meet the judge via video. When the guard came to get me, I told him I wouldn't meet without my lawyer. But the judge is waiting, he said. I don't care. I want my lawyer. Reschedule it. My schedule's open. The guard hesitated, then walked off. 3 days later, they informed me the meeting was set for the following week. I requested 30 minutes with my lawyer beforehand, and they agreed. When we met, my lawyer said he hadn't been given any details about the meeting, which he found strange. I guess we'll figure it out as we go. When the judge appeared on the video, it was clear he wasn't happy about the delay. I didn't care. To me, He was just another egotistical idiot who thought he was better than everyone because he wore a robe. My lawyer spoke first. Your Honor, may I ask what this is about? We weren't given any information, just told to be here. The judge replied, Your client didn't need you. I just wanted to see if he was willing to apologize to the court for his outburst. My lawyer glanced at me, and I motioned for him to lean closer. I whispered my response. Your Honor, my lawyer said, he's not willing to apologize and believes you owe him an apology. He also requests primary custody of the child. The judge looked stunned. Why would I ask him to apologize? Of course he wouldn't do that. My custody decision stands, and I have no apology to make. Then we're wasting time, my lawyer replied. If my client changes his mind, we'll let the court know. Good day, sir. The judge stopped him. One more thing. I braced myself, thinking, here comes the real reason for this meeting. Your client isn't honoring the divorce decree, the judge said. When does he plan to make the spousal support and mortgage payments? My lawyer turned to me, and I whispered my reply. Your Honor, my lawyer said, he doesn't intend to make any payments while incarcerated. But the house will be foreclosed on, the judge said. I responded bluntly, it's not my house. Maybe my wife's mansion, but not mine. I never wanted it. The judge warned, it will destroy your credit and cost you all your equity. A small price to see my favorite ex-wife walking the streets where she belongs, I replied with a smirk. The judge's face hardened as I added, maybe her buddies can cover the payments. I'm sure they can pool their resources. I knew my words would enrage him, but I couldn't resist implying the judge and my wife had a personal connection. It worked. You worthless Southside scum, the judge spat. Who do you think you're talking to? Calmly, I interrupted. I think I'm talking to the man who enjoyed my wife's company. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I just don't see why anyone uninvolved would care so much. Standing, I headed for the door. As the guard prepared to escort me back to my cell, I heard the judge shout, Counselor, your client just earned 2 more months in jail. If he keeps disrespecting me, I'll make his life a living hell. I smiled, noticing the guard's shocked expression. He couldn't believe what I'd just done. Back in my cell, the realization hit me. My wife had been discussing the mortgage with her friends, and somehow that information had reached the judge. What a mess. But their time would come soon enough. The following Sunday, Lily couldn't resist visiting me in jail. Thankfully, Gina insisted on tagging along. I heard you pissed off the judge again and got 2 more months in jail. When are you going to learn you can't fight the system, Lily? She said. Why don't you just talk to me anymore? All you're doing is trying to act out against the North Side. I don't need that. All I care about is Gina visiting me regularly. She practically screamed, It's Regina. I turned away and stayed silent as Lily continued yelling. Eventually, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Moments later, Gina walked in, her face glowing with a big smile. Why are you so happy? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Because I'm going to see my daddy, she said brightly. That can't be the only reason, I teased, leaning back in my chair. She grinned mischievously. I have a surprise for you, but I can't tell you about it yet. I need to think it through first. Dad, do you trust me? With my life, I replied without hesitation. Her grin widened as she pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket and held it out to me. Then, will you sign this without reading it first? I looked at her cautiously. What are you up to, Gina? You'll find out soon enough, she said, her tone playful. I thought you trusted me. Smiling at her confidence, I signed the paper as she carefully folded it to reveal only the signature line. There, I said. But you owe me an explanation later. She tucked the paper away and shifted the conversation. Mom said you did something to get 2 more months added to your sentence. Is it true? Yes, I admitted. And I'm sorry, darling. What did you do? She pressed. I confronted the judge again. Gina smirked. Well, whatever it was, he probably deserved it. We chatted for a while about school and her mom. She kept mentioning her school counselor, Dr. Alex Hodges, and speculating about what was going on. I tried steering the conversation back to her plans for the paper I'd signed, but she shook her head. It's a surprise, she insisted. Before long, I shifted the subject again. I'm sorry I won't be there for your 16th birthday, I said softly. But the next time you visit, I'll have a present for you. Her eyes lit up. What is it? It's a surprise, I said with a grin. I guess we're both keeping secrets. As she stood to leave, I asked, Can you do me a favor and ask Greg to visit me? I need to talk to him about something important. Of course, Daddy, she said warmly before heading out. Greg had been my trusted point man for handling business matters before I went to jail. I'd left him with a few critical cases to manage, and now I had another task for him, a surprise birthday party for Gina. Later that week, Greg arrived for a visit. He gave me an update on everything I'd assigned him, and it was clear he'd been managing things well. Once we'd finished the usual business, I brought up my new request. I want to throw Gina a surprise birthday party, I said. Greg looked at me skeptically. Are you sure? He asked. Absolutely, I replied. It's perfect for her. He nodded slowly. All right, I'll make it happen. All right, I'll talk to our lawyer, he said. Also, I'll visit Ken and give him what you prepared. He'll know what to do. If he has questions, he can come to me. If not, I'll send him to Gummy. Sounds good, I replied, grinning. Gummy knew how my mind worked and would handle things while I stayed guilt-free in jail. By the end of the month, my reputation among the inmates had soared. Word had spread fast, likely thanks to a guard sharing the story of how I stood up to the judge. In jail, news traveled as quickly as it did in any organization, and soon everyone was calling me Tex. Toward the end of the month, I had another visitor. Walking into the visitation room, I stopped short when I saw Lily. Annoyed, I turned to leave, but her voice stopped me. Kurt, please wait, I need to talk to you, she said, her tone unusually earnest. I sighed and replied coldly, I have nothing to say to you, Lily. She ignored my protest and pressed on. We're going to lose the house. You have to give me money to stop the foreclosure. I stared at her, unflinching. This is your house, Lily. I never wanted it. You nagged me until I gave in, and now it's nothing but a financial sinkhole. It means nothing to me. There's no equity left in this market anyway. Let the bank take it. Her voice cracked. Kurt, you can't do this. You have to help me. I folded my arms. Ask your friends for help. I'm sure they have plenty of money. Then you can fully embrace the role you've chosen. Tears filled her eyes. Why are you doing this to me? She cried. I didn't hold back. Why did you lie to the judge and accuse me of maltreating our daughter? Her face went pale, and for a moment she was completely still. Then as the weight of her actions hit her, tears streamed down her cheeks. Without another word, I turned and walked out, a sense of relief washing over me. As the guard escorted me back to my cell, he got a call on his radio. Take him back to visitation, came the instruction. Expecting to find Lily still crying, I was surprised when I walked in and saw Gina instead. Gina, I said, startled. Your mom didn't mention bringing you. She didn't bring me, Gina said with a shrug. I wouldn't let her come here without me. I smiled, grateful to see her. I'm sorry I missed your birthday, I said, but I have a gift for you. Dad, she said, her voice soft. I knew you'd miss it, and I don't care. I love you anyway. You don't have to get me anything. I smiled, pride swelling in my chest. What an amazing daughter I have, I thought. I don't have the gift here, I said. And it's not immediate, but I can tell you what it is. Gina, the house in Oak Forest is yours. It'll go into a trust for you when you turn 18. Her eyes widened with excitement. When I get out of here, she asked eagerly, can I stay there? Of course, I replied with a grin. I'll even pay the rent. Her face lit up and a huge smile spread across her face. Daddy, oh my God, she exclaimed. You just removed a huge obstacle for my surprise. I still can't tell you what it is, but you'll understand when I do. I love you so much. I love you too, honey, I said, my heart full as I watched her smile. I couldn't stop wondering what Gina's surprise could be. It had to involve our home, not the mansion, but our real home. We both smiled as we kept talking. She brought up Alex, her counselor, again. Was it possible she had a crush on him? I hoped he was professional and had no improper intentions toward her. I'd have to meet this Alex guy as soon as I got out of here. As I was escorted back to my cell, a huge grin spread across my face, partly from the verbal showdown with Lily and partly from my uplifting talk with Gina. The other inmates were puzzled, as smiles in prison often meant someone had been hurt. One day, Gummy came to visit me. Everything was set. We had video evidence of my wife, some paralegals from her firm, some of them married, and courtesans, all being entertained by various lawyers at her firm, rising Democratic politicians, and a certain judge I knew well. They bragged about being untouchable and doing whatever they pleased. People often underestimate janitors. They come and go unnoticed. Offering free rent for a year was enough to convince one of them to install hidden cameras in the offices and conference rooms. I knew we'd gather enough dirt to upend some lives. My brother, acting anonymously, would post the videos online with the slogan, "Don't mess with Texas." They'd send them to key websites and every major news outlet and tabloid in the state. The media frenzy would turn these people's lives upside down as politicians and lawyers scrambled to contain the fallout. I smiled and told Gummy, "In a week, let the others know what to do next." "I will," he said. Walking back to my cell, I was grinning ear to ear. Ringer saw me and knew I had spoken to Gummy. "Holy crap," he muttered. I just nodded, my grin widening. When the tapes were released, I lay on my bunk, listening to the murmurs spreading through the prison. Somehow the news had even reached this grim corner of the world. I heard inmates start to say, "Don't mess with Texas." Not long after, one of the Sixes, the gang I had tangled with, entered my cell. He was a huge guy and seemed uneasy. "You're a bad fool," he admitted. "I'm sorry for what I did to you." Calmly, I replied, "I warned you all not to mess with me. Now more people regret crossing me. I respond to kindness with kindness and violence with violence. I hope you'll accept my apology." "Sure," he said. "But remember, just because you're big doesn't mean you can't hurt yourself." He nodded and walked out. 3 days later, I was summoned before the judge again. My lawyer had already been contacted and was on his way. We sat in the video room waiting for the connection. "Wonder what this is about," my lawyer said with a sly smile. "Time will tell," I replied, matching his smirk. When the judge appeared on screen, his eyes burned with rage. "You did it!" he shouted. "Did what?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "You're Tex, aren't you?" he bellowed. "Some people call me that," I said evenly. "You're going to pay for this," he yelled. "I've been in jail for 4 months. How could I have done anything?" I replied, unfazed. "You have friends." "We all have friends, Your Honor," I said with a touch of sarcasm. "You're not getting away with this," he spat. "I don't know, Judge. You might be out of a job soon. I hear your wife's divorcing you." "Call off your dogs," he demanded. "Calling my friends dogs? They might not appreciate that. Corner a dog and you might get bitten." "Is that a threat?" he asked. "No, just a saying," I replied. "I'll make your life a living hell. When you leave this filthy prison, you'd better watch your back. One day, someone will make you pay, and I'll be thrilled to see it happen." He abruptly ended the call. I turned to my lawyer. "Did you get that?" "Every word," he said, holding up his phone. "Perfect. The Bar Association will love this. Last I checked, intimidation is a crime in Illinois." A few days later, my wife showed up for another visit. The moment I saw her, my mood soured. "Oh, it's you," I said flatly. "I thought I made it clear I have nothing more to say to you." "You fool!" she yelled, her voice trembling with fury. "What now?" I asked calmly. "You got me fired. My picture is all over the news and the internet. How could you do this to me?" she whined. "You did it to yourself," I said coldly. "Do you hate me that much?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Yeah, and your arrogant law buddies who think they're above everyone else," I replied, my words cutting. "When we first met, you were a sweet, small-town girl with a great personality. Now you're just a selfish, uptown witch." "What am I going to do?" she cried. "I don't have a job, and no one will hire me." I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "Move back to Seymour and stay with your folks," I suggested. "I can't," she said. The local paper ran a headline, "Local Girl at Center of Chicago Scandal." "My parents are retiring early and moving to Florida to avoid the gossip." "Well, Florida sounds like the perfect place for you," I replied coldly. "Farther away from me." "They don't want me there. They barely even talk to me anymore." "Wow," I said, my voice heavy with mock surprise. "Your parents barely talk to you. Your daughter barely talks to you. Maybe the problem is you." She looked devastated but didn't reply. I continued, "I think you should move and start over, but don't even think about taking Gina with you. As soon as I'm out of here, I'll petition for primary custody. With your reputation, I'm pretty sure the court will rethink who's the better influence for a teenage girl." "You can't do that," she said desperately. "She's all I have left. Lily, I don't care. You did this to yourself. We had a good life, but then you decided to have fun with everyone." I paused, smirking. "Here's an idea. You could work as a strumpet for one of your lawyer buddies. I bet there's still a market for a nearly 40-year-old. She stared at me, tears streaming down her face, then broke down completely, resting her forehead on the table as she sobbed. "Sucks to be you," I said without a shred of sympathy. "Did you bring Gina?" She practically exploded. "It's Regina! And no, she's busy with that doctor friend of hers." "Well," I said, standing up, "then I've got nothing more to say to you. Don't bother coming back unless you bring Gina." I turned and walked away, leaving her sobbing at the table. For the first time, I didn't feel any satisfaction. Seeing her so broken left me strangely hollow. The next day, I saw the night report. A fire had gutted the top floor of a 5-story office building downtown. Thanks to the sprinkler system, the lower floors were spared, but the damage above was total. I just smiled. The following day, Ken told me that the law firm's external server had crashed, wiping out all their data. Again, I smiled. A couple of weeks later, Gina came to visit. She must have convinced her mom to bring her, but as soon as she walked into the room, I noticed the biggest smile I'd ever seen on her face. "Gina," I said, my mood instantly lifting. "You look so happy. What's going on?" "I finally finished my surprise for you," she exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. "You'll never guess what it is." I chuckled. "Well, based on our last conversation, it's something to do with the Oak Forest house. Don't tell me you and your mom moved there. She'd live anywhere but there." "You're half right," she teased, her grin growing wider. I frowned slightly, trying to piece it together. "What do you mean?" "Mom's being evicted from the Wilmette house," she explained, "and I'm moving into the Oak Forest house." I blinked, taken aback. "How can you do that? The court gave her primary custody until you're of age." Gina's eyes sparkled with pride. "I'm legally an adult now." I stared at her, completely stunned. "Wait, what?" She grinned triumphantly. "I got emancipated. That's what Alex and I have been working on for the past 2 months. Once you put the house in trust, everything fell into place. I needed a stable place to live, and our old neighborhood is perfect for me." "So, let me get this straight," I said, still processing. "You're officially an adult now?" "Exactly," she said. "When things got rough at school, mostly because of issues at home, Dr. Hodges helped me work through it. Now, once you're out of here, you can come home. I'm excited to go back to high school in Oak Forest. I've already reconnected with old friends, and they can't wait for summer to end so school can start." "I heard you've been spending time with a counselor. I'd like to meet this Alex guy," I said, still suspicious of why he was so involved with her. "You're in luck," Gina said. "Alex brought me here today." My concern deepened. He was driving her around Chicago. I needed to tread carefully. I didn't want to upset Gina, but I also needed to make it clear to Alex that there were boundaries he shouldn't cross. When Gina returned, I was surprised. Instead of a man, a stunning woman with raven hair followed her in. She smiled warmly and asked, "How are you doing?" I studied her closely and said, "Freddie?" She smiled knowingly. I haven't heard that name in 20 years. Freddie, now Alexandria, was from my old neighborhood. She wasn't part of my gang, but we went to school together. Gina looked between us, clearly confused. "Daddy, how do you know Dr. Hodges?" Freddie, or Alex, answered, "We grew up in the same neighborhood, but he barely noticed me." Turning to Gina, I explained, "She was a couple of years behind me in school, and we didn't really hang out." "And you were a juvenile delinquent," she added with a smirk. "Looks like some things never change. You're in your 40s now, and you're still behind bars." My face flushed. "I've never been good at keeping my mouth shut." "Clearly," she teased. "I hear people call you Tex now, don't they?" "Why do you call him that?" Gina asked. "That was his nickname as a teenager," Alex explained. "He always got even when someone crossed him. Your mom did something terrible to him, and judging by the news about the law firm, I'm betting Tex had a hand in that." "I plead guilty," I said with a sly smile. Before we went further, Alex addressed me. "I hope you're okay with me spending time with Regina." "It's Gina," she corrected. "Right, Gina," Alex said. Then turning back to me, she continued. "When I started working with Gina about 9 months ago, she was deeply upset about everything happening in her life. I wondered if she was related to you and Ken, since D'Angelo isn't a common last name. When I found out her dad's name was Kurt, I still wasn't sure, until she mentioned you were in prison. Then I knew it had to be you. I felt awful, but I figured you must have turned things around since you had a house in Wilmette." "It's just a house. It was never home," I said flatly. Gina chimed in. "Our real home is in Oak Forest. South Side, but a much better area than where we grew up," Alex added. "Yeah," I said, feeling a twinge of regret. "If we'd stayed there, maybe things would have turned out differently." We all paused, lost in thought, before continuing the conversation. I pulled Freddie aside and said, "I really appreciate you taking time away from your family to help Gina. Thank you for guiding her through emancipation. It's made such a difference." "It's no problem, Tex. She's like family to me. I've grown really attached to her." "Thanks again. When I get out of here, we'll all go out to dinner," I said. "I'll hold you to that if you ever get out," she replied with a smile. The next 2 weeks passed uneventfully, just the usual grind of prison life. Gina and Freddie continued visiting me every Sunday, and I felt a sense of relief knowing Freddie was looking out for Gina. During one visit, Gina told me Alex had been helping her decorate the house, buying new furniture and decorations. Curious, I asked, "Where's the money coming from?" "From Uncle Ken, of course," she replied. "I've got money set aside for what I need." "Right," I said, nodding. I just wanted to make sure Freddie wasn't paying for anything. She's done so much for us already, but this is something I needed to handle. "Don't worry, Dad," Gina reassured me. "It's all taken care of." "I just hope it's not all girly stuff in there," I teased. "I'd like to feel at home too," she laughed. "Don't worry, your man cave is still a man cave." She was referring to the basement, which I had renovated into my personal retreat. Living in a house with two women had sometimes made me crave a private space, and that basement had been my sanctuary. After they left, I lay in my cell reflecting on how much Gina had grown. She was an adult now, taking control of her life. Soon she'd be off to college, and who knows where life would take her. I thought about what my life would look like after her departure, how I'd manage being alone, and whether I'd meet someone who appreciated life's simple pleasures. The following Monday, I had another visitor, Lily. The moment I saw her, I turned to leave. "Kurt, wait!" she called after me. "We need to talk." Reluctantly, I stopped and turned back. "What now?" I thought, bracing myself. "Do you know what our daughter did?" she asked, her tone accusatory. "What are you talking about, Lily?" I said warily. "She got emancipation," Lily exclaimed. "She doesn't have to live with us anymore. She's already moved out, and I don't know where she is." "Oh, that," I said, shrugging nonchalantly. "So you knew," she said, narrowing her eyes. "Did you encourage her to do it?" "No," I replied. "She did it herself, with help from her school counselor." "Is she staying with the counselor?" Lily pressed. "No, she's back home on the south side." "What about school?" Lily demanded, her voice rising in frustration. "She'll return to Oak Forest in the fall," I said calmly. "She hated that school in Wilmette, Lily. They treated her like an outsider. A kid from the projects, as they called it. She never fit in with high society. You took her away from a school she loved, where she had good friends, and placed her in an environment that hurt her self-esteem and gave her an inferiority complex. You caused more damage than good." "I just wanted her to get a good education," Lily said defensively. "Children learn more from their parents' example than they do in school," I countered. "We were her first teachers about life. What lesson do you think your example has taught her?" Lily hesitated before saying quietly, "I hope it shows her what not to do. Our job as parents is to raise responsible, law-abiding adults. I hope we've done that, and that she'll forgive our mistakes, especially our failed marriage." "It wasn't all bad," Lily said softly. "No, but it ended that way. Lily, I hope you find what you're looking for." Clearly, I wasn't it. She looked at me, sadness and regret etched on her face. I stood, walked away from the table, and left. For a moment, I felt sorry for her again. The day of my release finally arrived, and this time, I was summoned to an actual courtroom. Gina, Freddie, and Lily were present. As I waited, I noticed it was a different judge. I wondered if the previous one had lost his position. The new judge reviewed my case before addressing me. "Mr. D'Angelo, what do you have to say for yourself?" I replied. "I've served my original 6 months plus 2 more. "You could have apologized and walked free," he said. "I didn't believe the other judge deserved an apology, so I served my time," I stated. "You are a stubborn man," he remarked. "I prefer strong-willed. It served me well in business and life," I responded. The judge continued. "The divorce agreement remains in effect. You must compensate for the months you didn't pay." My attorney intervened. "Your Honor, my client is prepared to pay $20,000 today, which covers his obligations and closes all financial ties with his ex-wife." Lily immediately protested. "What? He owes me more and must keep paying until Regina turns 18. The judge silenced her. "Miss, I will handle this. Counselor, explain your calculations." My lawyer explained, "My client covered the down payment for spousal support, mortgage, and insurance. He continued to pay for his daughter's insurance and needs throughout his incarceration, but could not pay spousal support or the mortgage due to lack of income. With the foreclosure on the house and the child's recent emancipation, spousal obligations ceased 3 months ago. The final amount owed is $19,782, which he will round up to $20,000. The judge reviewed the documentation and nodded. "If these figures are accurate, I'll accept the payment." The judge addressed us both. You share a daughter, now legally an adult but still a teenager with needs. She deserves a stable, respectful environment. Can I count on you to remain civil? He looked at me first. Mr. D'Angelo? Yes, Your Honor, I replied. Then to Lily. Mrs. D'Angelo? Yes, Your Honor, she said. Finally, to our daughter. And you, Regina? It's Gina, Your Honor. Yes, she corrected. The judge concluded. If the evidence holds, this case will be closed. Mr. D'Angelo, you're free to go. Thank you, Your Honor, my attorney said. As we headed out, Gina ran to hug me tightly. Freddie smiled warmly, but across the room, Lily approached, visibly bitter. $20,000? That's all I get? She spat. Why did you choose them over me? They can help you, but what about me? Remembering the judge's plea for civility, I kept calm. Let's stay respectful for Gina's sake. It's Regina, Lily hissed. Our daughter, I corrected. Fine, she snapped. But I have no job, no home. What now? You can get another job, I said. For housing, I'll let you stay in one of my apartments, rent-free for 6 months to help you get back on your feet. Move back to the south side? She sneered. It's free rent, I said. Take it or leave it. She huffed and walked away. I turned to Gina and Freddie. Ready to go? Of course, they replied in unison. Freddie, I owe you a nice dinner, I said. How about RPM Italian? I booked it as soon as I got my release date. Lily's face twisted. RPM had been our place. Ignoring her, I added, the reservation's for 6:30. Want to take a drive first? I need to feel free again. Turning to Freddie, I asked, could your husband join us? Freddie's expression froze. Gina intervened. Daddy, she doesn't have a husband anymore. I'm sorry, Dr. Hodges. I didn't tell him. Confused, I glanced at Freddie's wedding ring. She explained softly, my husband died in a car accident 5 years ago. I never took off the rings. It feels like letting go of him completely. I'm so sorry. I had no idea, I said. It's okay, she replied, managing a small smile. I'd like to join you tonight. Dinner was amazing. Real clothes, good food, and freedom. As we left, I turned to Freddie. When you're ready, could I take you on a real date? No rush, just when it feels right. Freddie smiled. I'd like that. Gina grinned. Daddy, she's stuck with us. Freddie laughed. Wouldn't have it any other way. Later, when we arrived home, I was overwhelmed. The house was refreshed and welcoming. I broke down, tears streaming as Freddie whispered, welcome home. She removed her wedding rings, and we embraced. In the end, Gina gained a new mother figure and later twin siblings named Frederick and Alexis in Freddie's honor. Lily remarried a wealthy attorney who gave her the status she craved, but not the happiness. As for me, I finally found peace.